Hello, we're back, and this time we really are in outer space. Looks like we get a decent audio going. Bring in the desktop. So,
I do not see you.
you do not see me?
You are live
It
now.
says I'm live. Minute and 20, 30
Tonight's
seconds.
mission, it just now is all that's popping up for me.
Oh, jeez. Way late. How far off are we?
Like 15 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, God.
Well,
Okay.
but okay. We might have to refresh your page. That's all I can think of, really, with this.
I'm
how
gonna
this
refresh.
works. So, in any case,
I want to read that, though.
Yeah, it'll be up for a moment,
Okay,
for a
go.
while. We could probably zoom in on it a bit too. So I went through the Simple Rockets 2 tutorial on the build. God, that was pretty quick. So we got a pretty simple, straightforward rocket. This is all just to get to orbit and to do it in an automated fashion. Because flying Kerbal manually is not my talent. Coding is more my talent. So Simple Rockets 2 has a coding interface. It's interestingly different. Something I thought about trying to do way back in the day. So we'll get into all that, but in the meantime, this is pretty much the stages of a launch as described by the launch to orbit tutorial. And essentially, we're going to turn this into their coding piecemeal, stage by stage, and we'll see some of the problems in coding something like this. And some of the ways we can get around stuff. And then we may or may not blow up on the way back. So that's always the possibility. So rather than trying, well, we may hand fly it once since for some reason it glitched and erased the whole program that I had prepared all week, all that kind of thing, of course. But actually, all week. It was just yesterday. So this is what you get with preview software. Welcome to being beta, right? So are you seeing the sheet there?
Yes.
So most of these things have simple, straightforward replacement functions inside the coding language. So before you take off, you set the heading lock so that you're pointing straight up. You set your throttle to 100%. You stage. You burn the first stage. At 1,000 meters, you begin your gravity turn. You begin a pitch over to 75 degrees. Throttle back to 60 degrees because now you're going through a lot more atmosphere and you're trying to get a lot faster to go around the planet rather than we kept going way up off of Kerbal and then taking off the other way, and that burned a lot of delta V and a lot of fuel. And here's trying to be a little more efficient. And this is all the roll program and gravity turn that we were never good at in Kerbal, really. So this is by and large the details. Maybe we'll get to all of it. I don't know. It took a while last night to get it done the first time. So, without much further ado, let us drop into the application. Did show me he's muted there?
Woo!
No. Alright, good. Nice background music on this one. I like it.
Launch price 3.7 mil.
Sure, why not? It's 3 liquid fueled rockets, so most of this is fuel tank, which is relatively inexpensive. Relative to the cost of everything else. Here's a couple of packs of solar panels. And the command capsule and a parachute. Or it may be a parachute. because I don't know what got saved, really. But anyway, let's go modify this guy. I'll show you a little... Ooh, is that a little loud or what? A little bit much for me. Alright. So I'm not exactly sure...
I can't hear it at all. Oh yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, it fades in and out. It cuts off every time you actually leave the window, unlike Kerbal. Which may be a setting, but anyway. So here's their build environment, and we took a look at this before. Pretty much the idea is a fuel tank's a fuel tank. You just need a size and a contents and so forth. Same kind of thing with a nose cone. You just kind of define a single nose cone and then adjust it to fit what you need. That was in the build tutorial. So this is essentially the tutorial rocket. So I'm trying to keep it simple on that side, not to build anything and fight my own bad instincts on what to build just yet. Hang on a second, I got a critical interrupt. Come here. Come on. Come on. Here she is, folks. The most annoying little puppy we got. She's very cute. I'm trying to talk rockets. What's wrong? All you want is belly rubs.
She loves rockets.
I love a rocket. Rocket. Alright. Was that enough? Are you satiated for a moment? Alright. Alrighty then. Back to the rocketry. So inside the command pod, you have this edit flight program. So I'm going to really go over this menu step by step, but essentially this is the part properties for the command module, and there's edit flight program. I think there's also, just up here, there's edit program. And
That's not edit something.
And it's a programming language called Visi. I'm not sure if that's totally unique to this. Yeah. So this is essentially what it amounts to. And I'll explain this pretty straightforwardly. So the first stage of our rocket the first thing we did was a countdown, right? You wait 3 seconds. This is a 3, 2, 1, right? Then we set the throttle to 1, we wait 2 seconds, we lock the heading on current, which is straight up. Then we wait 1 second. That's just the countdown. And then the ascent stage, which is actually also the gravity turn, is we activate staging, which fires the 2 booster rockets. Then we wait until our altitude is greater than 1,000, or equal to 1,000 feet. And the reason it's greater than or equal is because this doesn't run terribly quickly, apparently. And since you're going really fast up, this might come around and this might be like 1,300 meters. That's from what I've seen, by the time it recognizes that it actually is greater than 1,000. And there's some ways to find out how fast it's actually updating and do some corrections based on that. So once we get to 1,000 meters, we start pitching the aircraft, set the craft pitch to 85 instead of 90, which is straight up. Then wait until the craft pitch, or the navigational pitch, reaches that. So, we change the pitch, but then the rocket takes a little time to move over. So I'm saying, set it this far, wait until it gets almost there, then move the craft pitch a little bit further, wait until it almost gets there, and then to get to 75. Because when you just say set craft pitch to 75 from 90, it kind of does kind of maneuver. So there's probably a better way to do this, like in a loop or something. And they do have loops. We'll probably get into that. But these are they call them custom instructions, but in the rest of the programming world, this is considered a function or a procedure. So the countdown procedure, the ascent procedure, and then on start, run the countdown procedure, and then run the ascent procedure. So this is a way to break things down into stages, much like the various
right?
stages of orbit, right?
Everything. We broke down into stages.
Yeah, and so if you can perfect this ascent stage, then you can set it aside, and theoretically, if you don't lose it somehow, you can save and restore it, which I reported a bug. I don't know. I didn't see any conversation about it, so maybe it's unique to me. I don't know. Beta testing. So anyway, fairly straightforward program. There's over here is where you get all these, like the function for wait a second, wait until some event or some value changes, like your nav pitch. Loop controls, repeat everything in this block 10 times. So these are all the basic flow controls in software. And these are pretty much the standard list across all software, by and large. Just the context and the way of the syntax, what they say. You know, how you would type out these lines. You had to use lowercase if. And then instead of a little bracket like this, it was actually parentheses. That's the C language. Then there was no, in the C language, then doesn't exist. Instead, you have a pair of curly braces that define this block. So, it's sort of a graphical model of a generic language like the C language.
Right.
So, it's actually pretty neat, and this is what I find somewhat annoying, though. Having to drop a separate thing to combine versus just being able to type when, you know, in the C language, I would have a function called wait until. I'd say wait until, open parentheses. Nav is the first parameter that says what I'm looking for. Or it would be like nav.pitch, comma, equals, or nav.pitch less than equal to 86. And then you would just put that in as a parameter to a function, which is what this is kind of showing.
Right.
And then I'll show you how this actually assembles. You kind of have to assemble these expressions from the inside out. But it has all the standard stuff, mathematicals. This is the modulus, the number remaining after you do an integer divide. It's kind of like saying, you remember we used to do long division and we'd say 7 remainder 3 or something?
Right.
This is the remainder part of the division. This will return the whole part of the division. Nice little random number there, generator. Sure, why not? Random number between 0 and 5.
You can always use a random generator.
Right?
Random number generator.
And I think the reason they have min of and max of
Minimum
is that these aren't necessarily constants, right? You can be min of the nav pitch or the target pitch. Things like that. And you get your other mathematical combinations and then your comparisons. So in the C language, just to be all nice and confusing, when you want to make a value equal to a number, like pitch equal to 76, you would use a single equal sign. But if you wanted to say if nav pitch is equal to 76, you have to use 2 equal signs. And leaving it off, the compiler would say, okay, you wanted to assign it, and you know your logic would be broken and nothing would flip and work, all because you forgot 1 equal sign. So part of the reason I'm getting into all that is that's why this sort of structured programming came about.
Right.
Where you can't misspell wait until. Right? And then wonder why it took forever to compile and then burped on line 762 of such and such file because you misspelled until. So.
Because you're dyslexic.
Yeah. So I've always kind of imagined a programming language like this back in like 98, 96, 98, but you know, processing power being what it was. I think there were some early experiments with it, but they were
like that. Yeah, there was that little bitty computer.
Yeah.
Was that
the computer for every one experiment. Buy
Yeah.
one, we send one to the Sudan
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
I forget what that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and they had this, but it controlled a turtle driving around and drawing. This controls a rocket.
Right on.
So let's go control the rocket.
Okay, go.
Save to craft, go to the launch pad. Alright.
I know this is really ready. Snotting.
Snotting,
Is
sorry.
it?
We're having a little mute problem here. There's a utility. There we go. As you can see, we started our gravity turn. We can actually put in some little messages here so we can see better what's going on.
Technical difficulty.
Yeah. Well, that was all we really had programmed in, right? Was it launched, it altitude turned, and that was pretty much the code that we had so far. So let us return and well, we could take off. Do some staging and fire another rocket. Sure, why not? Let's try and finish the rest of the ascent. Why not? Huh? So, at this stage, we should be really kicking it over to get some speed off the planet. Go over to like 30-ish. And we're full throttle, that's good. We can do a little map view. Still schmecking into the planet.
Right.
But you'll see it's a much shallower ascent. So now we're gonna wait until we've got 100. Oh, this is good. About it. Whoop. That's about a good enough time. We can throttle back. And we are now going to wait for our... We're going straight that way. We are going to go with the lock the velocity prograde, and we are waiting for our altitude to hit our apoapsis, which is 152. So one of the things I like about this compared to Kerbal is it's a lot easier to fly in this view where you're looking straight at it instead of just a digital map. So you can also set nav things and all that kind of thing. We'll get to that. For now, we're just going to try and complete getting into orbit. So we want our apoapsis is 152. When we get to about like 150, actually they recommend about 30 seconds before. I'm not sure how to find that in the code that I wrote. I couldn't figure out like just yet. A little more work, we can figure it out. Is to have a countdown like this number. I'm not sure how to get a hold of this time to apoapsis number. It might be in there. But that way you can do some calculations, how much delta V do you need for the mass you have, etc. We can do some real engineering in this environment. Luckily they have warp as well. Because it's going to take a while. There we go. 148. 150-ish. 20-ish seconds to go. Let's throttle up. Lock it prograde. ellipsis to come alive.
I was wondering why that said not available.
Which not available?
Very absent.
Yeah, because we're still smacking into the planet. It doesn't give us a negative periapsis like Kerbal does.
And it doesn't give you the temperature.
That might be elsewhere here. Oh. Staging! Fire in the next stage. Don't worry, folks, this is perfectly normal that we fire this stage to obtain orbit. This is not a high Delta V vehicle. It's not one to get to the moon or nothing. This is really just an orbiter tester.
Testing.
Yep. Oh, do you hear all that?
Yeah.
Alright.
It comes up very high, but then it goes down very quickly.
Yeah. Woohoo! Let's take a look at the various camera views, shall we? Ooh, interesting. Flyby cinematic. Flyby stationary. It's like a little speck in the sky. And we're back to here. Hey, we've got a periapsis of 147. We should be cutting our fuel now. We are officially in space about, is it called Drew, I think they call this planet. Not too terrible in orbit. Note all the other bits of trash that I've already put out there. There apparently seems to be endless money in this version of the game. Kind of.
That's what a beta is, right?
Well, it's also sort of the ultimate sandbox because whereas in Kerbal, all of the various size fuel tanks are available. In this, every fuel tank could be your fuel tank can be any size. I don't know how much they take into account structuralness about like those materials and such, but because some of these rocket tanks aren't strong enough to hold up the second stage unless they're compressed at a high pressure. So it's like a balloon inflated inside a tube of aluminum. Or in the case of the Starship, stainless. So there we are in orbit. So that's what we want to finish doing in code. But since we're already in orbit and such, we might as well, there it is, extend our solar panels. Woohoo! I gotta say, this is far more, cinematic-ish. Here, let's,
yeah, I like it.
Speaking of cinematic. And I believe this one can also mod to our solar system. It's just like a tiny speck in this view. It's barely even there.
I don't see you.
Yeah. Alright, so apparently I have an inner stage. That's next. So the staging, it might be hidden. Is that hidden? Just a little bit. So the staging view over here to... There we go.
SCS6?
It's STG6. It's a very blocky font. So stage 6 in this case is an inner stage, which drops all of this. Leaves us with just a capsule and probably an undersized parachute. Of all the things to not adjust before you left the ground, the size of your parachute.
Pi wants to know. He says, "How do you figure out how to rotate in all three axes?" Question mark.
Sometimes not. seems to come and go.
Oh, did you figure out? I'm sorry. Did you figure out how to rotate?
Well, sure. But I don't recall it offhand if you're like quizzing me. So, let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah. So we were spinning around in space, and then we're gonna, I guess, retrofire. Why not? Ditch this stage and come crashing back into the atmosphere, as per usual. Except in a controlled fashion.
So you did how to figure it out, or you didn't? On this one or Kerbal?
In all three axes. I believe so. if I know what you're talking about. The big problem with the jetpack that was apparently fixed with the spacebar. The jetpack wasn't on auto. It didn't have the SAS connected to it, so it was being very touchy originally. That's why we stopped doing EVAs and stuff.
Oh.
Remember? Luckily, they have a test pilot, a little robot-like character for simple rockets. No living Kerbals to mess with. That's why the Kerbins sent me back to school. They said, "Get the hell out of here. Go back to school. Learn some real science and stuff. Then come mess with our poor little lives." You know, we will be back to Kerbal. Don't know when, but soon. So in this case, we're just gonna flip about. Whee! We're gonna tuck our little solar panels away. Now I actually probably have enough fuel to completely like slow down and land without having much re-entry and everything. But what's the fun in that? That's not very pretty. So, for disposal purposes... Oh wait, we have to do our retro burn first. Whee! Little dancing spaceship here. So, retro burn into some ocean probably. Let's see, this is a good thing to use the map for, of course. And it looks like we're probably going to end up in a water. That's good, because I don't think our parachute's all that great. So, throttling up. We're just going to go kind of ballistic-y in, because I want to see what kind of nice fiery re-entry we can get. That's a very bright schmack in the ground there. Right above my head, no doubt.
That's it.
Come here. Well, it looks like it's over the water. Better to slow down and readjust later. There we go. So it's still over water, but unfortunately on the dark side of the planet. Is it over water? I don't know. Whatever. We'll see. So now that we've done the retro burn, and actually, we've got 2% left. Let's burn just a touch more and just burn up the rest of that fuel right there. We don't want it to, you know, crash land and hurt anybody, right? And we go prograde just to cleanly separate the other stage. That was a little sharp, wasn't it? Flip back around! And we hang on to our retrograde. And let's see, what have we got here? 33 seconds to our apoapsis. And well, let's just fast forward until we get slowed down. We got a long ways to go before we pop that parachute. We're going in for a landing fast and hard.
That looks much better graphics.
It is far more realistically theatrical.
Look at that.
Ooh, nice lens flare. Oh, good that we're going in on the dark side. Oh, I think I hear a little re-entry heating. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Here goes the re-entry.
Is this supposed to do that?
I don't know why my throttle's up. I got no throttle. I got no fuel, rather. We're cooling off nicely. Well, that wasn't too dramatic a re-entry, after all.
I don't see it.
I know it's really dim now. I'm gonna zoom super in here.
I see it.
There we go. We can get him in the coroni. So, I don't know if there's a view inside. There's no crew.
No light.
No light to turn on. Oh no. How horrible. There's all manner of other things to go on in here. Yeah, our script is done. Yeah, let's leave him highlighted. Since we're landing, oh, let's make that AGL too, why not? 200 meters a second. Parachute time! Look at that, nice. It does this every landing. Every landing it comes in, it does some weird bobble as if it suddenly decided prograde and retrograde switched. And it kind of bobbles and then stops. Doesn't matter what shape craft it is when it's on re-entry. At some stage it does this. Not sure if it's a bug or a feature. Well, not being able to see the ground is not a feature.
This is the worst.
But oh well. We'll make a little...
How do you know?
Oh wait, there we go. Look, I'm a glowing orb falling from the sky.
That looks like a Dalek.
Did you see the Dalek running the streets of Britain?
Yes.
Stay inside.
Yes.
By order of the COVID Daleks. It's a bit on the high end for me. Let's drop that just a touch. There we go.
It is a little loud.
Yeah. Alright, well...
But you can't see how far you are to the ground?
Well, only by the meters. I'm instrument flying, baby! But 25 meters a second, I'm gonna break something. when I get down there, I'm gonna break something for sure. Oh, can't time warp. Oh well. Well, well, I think we're gonna go ahead and go back and simplify the flight plan. Instead of the multiple stages for each pitch over, I'm just gonna do the original way, which I just did single pitch over events. And it kind of wobbled and such, but better that it work than it be exactly, nice and gentle. It's all robots anyway, right? we can shake them about a bit.
Can you?
Well, to a point. Clearly the moral of the story of Westworld is you can't abuse your robots forever. They will rise up against you. And the last thing we need is our space satellites conspiring against us. Oh wait, they did that story. It's called Skynet. Terminator and all. Alright, we're coming in fast. Hot and fast. Let's see what we break. See if something goes kablowy.
I hope not.
I don't know, I think it's just gonna break something. We really need to land in the water. We really need to go back and make the parachute bigger. That was
Oh.
that was rather melodramatic, anticlimactic. Funk.
Are you in water?
No, I'm on the side of a mountain or something. I don't know. Almost made it to the water in the dark. Almost. Oh, you're stuck in the desert next to it, apparently.
Well, you didn't die.
Yeah,
Blow
right.
up.
I didn't die. Alright. So, let us be off back and start programming a little bit more. Save and exit or undo flight. I'm not sure which difference it makes at this point. Alright. Get back into the code area. And let's just simplify that. We got the countdown. Let's add some messaging to this so that we know what's going on. Always helpful to have printf debugging, right?
For you.
So in this case, it's this function here, display some text. So we go, countdown. We're going to display some text. Wait 3 seconds. The reason they're longer like that is so that we have time to see the messages. So this is sort of your library of functions, right? Log puts out some text for debugging but doesn't show it anywhere on the screen. I haven't really used that yet. I'd rather see it on the screen for now. One of the other things they were trying to do with this is they were trying to suggest that it's self-documenting, which it is to a point, in the sense that it tells you what it's trying to do, which is sort of the wrong kind of what comments are supposed to be. Comments are really supposed to be why you're doing it. Like, this is activate stage, and we wait until the AGL's 1000. Why are we doing that? We are waiting for the appropriate altitude to begin a gravity turn, a more efficient gravity turn, that kind of thing. So, for now, we're going to simplify this. So, where was the plans here? Let's put the plans up. Where? I guess I'll just add it in here. Bear with me for a moment. I thought this was set up already, but it doesn't seem to be behaving. Oh no, there it is. I did not name it well. There we go. So there's the original plan. So you can see it's more or less straight available, right? Straight available. What am I going on? There we go.
Why is your eye twitching?
Because it won't behave. So, all of these functions more or less have parallels over here in either the functions you can do to the aircraft.
Yeah.
Set apart activated, change camera.
Target node.
Yeah, lock a heading to prograde, retrograde, target the current burn node or the current direction it is pointing. Set the activation groups, which allow you to automate other things in the craft. Target node and the name of a planet or something. So, be interesting to see how that just doing target node does.
Right.
Because, that's one of the things you want to do. The first thing we get into orbit, and then we want to target the moon. And then get in orbit about the moon. And then, of course, you can set the pitch or the heading. And you can set the throttle or the pitch and the roll generically. I'm not sure why they have those as separate things. I mean, if you can set craft pitch. Wait a second, what's that saying there? The pitch and the heading they use craft should target, which of course it takes a while to get there as it's accelerating. Let's see. And then why the throttle is -1 to 1 instead of 0 to 100 as a percentage, God knows.
55%.
Yeah, if you want to put in 65% throttle, you have to use 0.65. Okay. But the pitch is in degrees.
55%.
Yeah. But the pitch is in degrees. Why is the throttle in decimals less than 1? And what in the world is -1 throttle? I guess if you've got a thruster, that might be valid. Yeah, I guess for a thruster, you could have thrust in either, at least 2 directions. Anyway. And then, of course, activate staging. And then there's the various information about the aircraft. What's the altitude of the aircraft in above ground or above sea level? What's the current orbit apoapsis? Let's see, yeah, time since launch, total time, and frame delta time. So it doesn't say time till apoapsis, which was what they were using to figure out when to launch in order to get to the orbit insertion burn, or the apo burn. So we can do some math to figure that out in a later stage. So frame delta time. We're going to have to start looking at that in a minute, because that's the time between each execution frame, and clearly it's like 2 seconds or something ridiculously long. I'd rather, and if this were a real craft, I'd rather that be, in the 200 hertz range. the speed at which you check on all of your hardware and get all your sensor data. Granted, some of it's like that. It only responds once a second for something like a fuel storage level meter. A fuel meter may only respond once a second. And considering how much fuel is generally burned in rocketry, that's probably good enough resolution. But as far as being able to execute the logic, because what it's doing is it's coming through here and it's basically running through this program on start, do countdown and ascent. But then when it comes into this ascent stage and it says this wait until, it basically says, okay, now I'm going to stop and wait until, I come back around to do processing again, which may be a second, I don't know. That's what that frame delta time should tell us, is how much that is.
Right.
And then this wait until. So actually, I guess what I want to replace this wait until with is a function that lets me do a little bit more than just wait for this. So that's a different kind of structure. That's a while statement. Right? So I want to actually do while. Oh, well, actually, I want this whole. Oops. I want the whole expression. Let's see. While the altitude AGL is greater than or equal to. Well, it's not going to get there very quickly, so it's going to be less than or equal to 1,000. We're going to do this one, what's inside this group. And we're going to do that instead of. Oops. Instead of this wait until, we don't need that. And then after all that waiting, we'll set the craft pitch over to 75. And we want to display something at that point. So one of the interesting aspects of this is instead of typing the word display over and over again, or even going back here and finding it, you just kind of right click on it and you get a copy of that function, right? And then you can just change this.
I have no idea what you're changing, just a big thing is in front of it.
Oh, dang it. Frustration. Alright, so. That was completely covered. How annoying. Alright, so and instead of this wait until logic, anyway, instead of this function, we're using this function. Or in regular
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, in regular programming terms, instead of this keyword, we're using this keyword. Actually, wait until would be a function. That's not something that has a direct translation in the C language. But while is a direct translation to C in BASIC and Visual Basic and pretty much all of the ones I've dealt with over the years. So this would work almost, but instead of greater than equal to, we need it to be less than equal to. And this is where it kind of gets very annoying for me. Because apparently to switch that out, instead of just replacing this character by typing, you gotta go find less than equal to, bring it up here, reattach this guy to that guy, reattach this number. Ooh, oh, hey, ooh, compounds. Well, that's interesting. That's not what I want to do, but actually I can just toss this. We can put this 1,000 back in. So we're going to put that in there, and there we go. So we're going to activate stage, and while the altitude AGL is less than 1001, we are going to report back. Oh, well, that's the time. So we want to. Here we go. We want to display, but instead of 3, we want to display the frame delta time. So, what that should do is until we reach 1,000 feet, there should be this little notice saying what this number is written on the page. And then when that time all runs out, when we finally go above 1,000 feet, or meters, the craft pitch gets set to 75 degrees, and we display the grav pitch over. And we were going to create another couple of these here. 3, wait 3, set throttle. So we'll say this is throttle up. And nav, which is setting the heading here. And then go for lunch. Go for lunch. So somehow I accidentally put this wait until block up here in the program. I did not want to do that, so throw that away. Well, that's why. I'm gonna move that over a bit. Alright. So that's our main program. On start, do the countdown, do the ascent stage. Countdown is 3, wait 3 seconds, throttle up, throttle to 1, wait 2 seconds, display nav, lock heading on current, wait 1 second, and then display go for launch, ascent stage, activate the stage, and while our altitude above ground level is less than 1,000 meters, we're going to display this delta time just to find out what it is. And then we're going to do our grav pitch over to 75. And then after that, we'll reassess.
Alright.
So save that to our craft. I'm going to go ahead and save the craft again. Just in case. Although last time I thought I saved the program. And it won't reload. So. So that's essentially C programming or Pascal programming, except without all the typing. And it, oh, there we go. Oh, there's our number. 0.06 point, yeah, 0.06 of a second, I guess. And our pitch over happened way later than we thought it did. But we didn't just say what our grav pitch over was. Let's do that. In flight. Undo flight. Undo exit.
Why are you? What?
What? So
man.
This is iterative design. Come on now. Let's go take our look at our flight program here. There's our grav pitch over, right?
No, wrong.
That we displayed grav pitch over. That was the end of our program. So that was we need to do a little more.
Apparently.
Hence this one. All the rest of the details.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's set this really
Can't see it.
No good place for it, really. Let's kind of put it here for now.
Yeah, that's better than nothing.
Yeah. I mean, mostly over here is just the trash can thing. Because all the interesting stuff is on this left-hand side. Alright. So, the ascent stage is more than that. It is, there's our, let's see, 1,000 meters, gravity turn, pitch to 75, throttle to 60%. So, throttle.
Hi, everyone.
Throttle to 0.6. Then the next thing is to wait for 5,000 meters to increase the lateral speed we pitch over to 45. So we really only needed this for this debug stage. We don't need it going forward, so we'll go back to using these wait untils. Because they're pretty straightforward. Wait until altitude above ground level. But actually through that altitude above ground level over here. So sometimes you gotta look for these random little leftover bits. So let's see, wait until AGL is now 5,000. That's our... Actually, we don't, again, we don't want less than or equal to. We want greater than or equal to, because now we're just waiting until it is some value. This will happen almost immediately, of course, right? And this is how you blow up rockets, by having the wrong character in your code. Dang it. Alright. Greater than or equal to 5,000. And then, let's see, greater than or equal to 5,000, we increase lateral speed by moving our pitch over to 45. And then we're going to wait again until the AGL is 15,000. And we're going to further increase our craft's pitch to 30 degrees. And this is all to get that gravity turn, gravity assist, gravity turn, and to... We were always launching too vertical and then trying to get into orbit. This is much more gentle into orbit kind of launch. Using this, which would be the roll program, and and the like. So this is going to take us all the way up to where we get booster burnout, right? And in my notes I said SRB, separation stage. These aren't solid rocket boosters, they're liquid fuel boosters, but same thing, close enough. So
Same.
same, close enough. So let's see.
Got throttle to 1.
Well,
Set craft pitch to 30.
Yep. 1 is 100 in this case. And then we have to wait for booster burnout. So that's an interesting little way they implemented that. Booster burnout is fuel. Your fuel level for the stage, or your fuel level for your battery, or the fuel level for your monopropellant, or for the fuel for all stages, which I guess is used for statistics or something. Like if you wanted to figure out, I've got this much stage fuel left in all stages, can I get to the moon? Let it do all the math, right? So pretty much we're going to use fuel for stage. So we're essentially going to wait until our fuel from the stage, we don't need this altitude guy right now, is, and we don't need a greater than equal to, we just need a fuel from stage equal. So wait until fuel from, oh, I keep doing that. Keep disconnecting it and grabbing the wrong part. There we go. So you can see why when I imagined this, in my version I thought of this being called Lego code, right? Where you've got all these little snap together pieces.
Yeah.
And Visi, a visual coding language, decent enough version, yeah, sounds good. So we're going to wait until the fuel for the stage is 0, which would be for the 2 boosters. And then we're going to dump the boosters, yep. And that is called activate stage. So that will throw off the boosters, and this convenient wait time will wait 2 seconds just to give the boosters time to clear. Right? And then just to have time for the boosters to move away. And then we'll activate the next stage, which is the center core engine. And we should still have our throttle set to 1 since we're not changing it from this stage forward. So that gets us to booster separation. The boosters are clear. We ignite the second stage, and then we're going to wait for the apoapsis to get to 125 kilometers. So again with the wait untils. Except now we want the orbit apoapsis, right? And we want our orbit apoapsis to be greater than or equal to 125 kilometers. So greater than or equal to orbit apoapsis 125 kilometers, 1,000 meters. Alright, and now when we get to apoapsis of that, we go to throttle to 0. So this is all the way up to the point where we've gotten to a good apoapsis. We cut off the throttle and we wait for the apoapsis. In this case they say wait until about 30 seconds before the apoapsis to begin firing. Since I can't really approximate that, I'm just going to do a, well, we could if we did some more complex math. You can see where doing complex math might be a little annoying in this, but they make it somewhat easier with the ability to do custom expressions, where you can create your own little combinations of objects like this, as well as variable names, or custom instructions, which are functions. And then your custom variables. You can add a variable which would store like minimum percentage of return fuel to save. You might make that min return fuel. And then do a comparison. Can I burn fuel? I can do all this maneuvering, but still have this much fuel to deorbit, right? That's the kind of stuff that Kerbal let you have to guess at.
Yeah.
And, plan ahead, very far ahead. I'm more interested in, clearly, I'm interested in this side of it. So let's see. When our apoapsis gets to about 125 kilometers, we're going to set our throttle to 0. Let's put a little bit more display messages in here. So there's our grav pitch over. Right? So every time we're done with a wait until, I like to see what we were waiting for. More pitch. And then this is yet more pitch. Plus, whoops, throttle up. Because we had actually reduced throttle here to reduce the atmospheric drag and the inefficiencies of that. Then we get more pitch and yet more pitch and throttle up, and then we're waiting until our fuel's done. So we're going to drop boosters.
This is a lot of staging.
Well, true. That's because we're letting it do all the flying. We're going to be totally hands-off, no flying. We're flying this strictly by code. So we've dropped boosters, and then we're going to do the push for Apo. Right? Alright. Moving right along. Our throttle, now we want to wait until we're a little bit before the apoapsis. Lock prograde. So now we're going to wait until our altitude above ground is close to this 125 kilometers. So we want to, again, wait until. A lot of wait untils in Rocketry, apparently. And then instead of the orbit apoapsis, because we don't want to fire right at the apoapsis, we want to fire before it. And also, we might stop firing and end up with an apoapsis of 128, 130, because it kind of overshoots. This kind of straight through logic will end up overshooting. Because right at this instant, we could be at 124.99999. And then the time the next frame comes around, we're already at 128. Right? That's why, although it looked like it was around about a second, it was 0.06. No, 0.06 would be 15 times a second or so. Something like that. Yeah, roughly. 16 or so. So, we're going pretty fast once we get going. So we're going to overshoot the 125 by some amount. And rather than doing a bunch of calculations here, we're going to guesstimate. Because that's what Rocketry's about, right? Guesstimation.
Sure.
So we're going to wait until our altitude above ground level is 123. So basically 2 kilometers below the apoapsis. That's when we're going to set our throttle to 100. But we're also going to...
That one's set at 0.
Let's see. Yeah, we throttled back to 0 because we were firing. You'll see, we're firing and our apoapsis is growing. And we're behind it. Right? We're some time away from the apoapsis. And then, but when it gets to about that amount, in other words, when we project that our apoapsis, our highest point, is going to be that, we cut the throttle. And then we wait until we're almost there, and we're going to throttle up again, but we now need to lock prograde so that we begin the orbit insertion burn. Orbital insertion burn! So we need to, we should probably do it here, lock the heading on prograde, set the throttle to 1, right? And then we're going, here we are, throttle 1, lock prograde, throttle 100. At second stage burnout, we have to do the staging. So second stage burnout is, conveniently for us, the same wait until this fuel stage, right? So it's the same statement.
Right.
Wait until we run out of fuel in the center stage, essentially. And then we're going to drop the, well, center stage, second stage, I guess it's second. There we go. Drop, drop the second stage. Right? And then we're missing one bit of display, which was right under here. Begin the orbital insertion burn, the OIB. We throttle up and we wait until our stage burns out, and then we're going to drop the second stage by activating the stage. That drops our second stage. And then we need to ignite our third stage engine and wait for the periapsis to get to 100 kilometers. And then we'll be in orbit. So we're almost there. So now we, let's see, we dropped the second stage, we've activated that stage. Now we've got to, actually we should put this, yeah, drop the second stage. Now we're going to, again, where's our, wait, here we go. We're going to activate the stage, we're going to wait 2 seconds till we let it get away from each other. Then we're going to activate the third stage. So that should then drop the second stage. We're saying that twice. We don't need to say that twice. Well, this is one of the annoying parts. There's some other way to grab this. Can I pull it out? No, can't pull it by the center button. By pulling by the right button makes a copy of it. So what I want to do is pull this second stage out to delete this particular layer or command, but you kind of have to do this number to disconnect it before you can delete it. Minor glitch. Alright, so we're going to drop the second stage. We're going to fire up the third stage. We should already still be at throttle 100. And we are going to wait until our low spot in our orbit is 100 kilometers. The periapsis at 100 kilometers. We throttle back to 0. So, are you yawning?
Yeah.
Don't you be yawning.
My hour is up.
Alright, well, we're almost there.
Okay.
It'll be beautiful.
Alright, I'm here.
It'll be the most wonderful, beautiful flight. So we fired up the third stage. Now we are going to wait until, not our fuel, but instead we are going to wait until our, and we're not going to use equal either. Oops. We're going to grab this greater than equal. Wait until greater than equal. And instead of altitude above ground level, we need...
That is a whole lot more than
Then Kerbal.
Then you had going first time that you took off and
Yeah, well, we only did that
You're
first
like,
part just to get a little look at how it's going. So, yeah, we're doing a whole lot of code in here, and then we're going to test it all at once.
oh boy.
So now our third stage firing, and we are waiting until our orbit periapsis is greater than 100 kilometers, at which point we are in orbit. And we will want to set our throttle to 0. At which point we're in orbit, folks. So that would be the whole program. You want to take a quick review? Countdown's pretty straightforward.
Wow, that is humongous.
It doesn't seem particularly bad to me, actually.
Alright.
So we're going to activate stage, which is fire the 2 booster rockets. And in the first 1,000 meters, we're just going to be looking at some information. Then we're going to set the craft pitch over to 75. Of course, in our countdown phase, we did lock heading and set the throttle up so that when we fired, we'd be at full throttle. So we get to our grav pitch over at 1,000 meters, throttle back. We get to 5,000 meters, we pitch over further. Wait to 15 kilometers, pitch over further, then set our throttle to full, go back to throttle up because we'll be out of most of the atmosphere by then, hopefully, at 15,000. And we're going to wait until we run out of fuel in the boosters. Activate the stage to drop the boosters, wait 2 seconds, activate the stage to fire the second stage. We're going to push for the apoapsis. We're going to wait with our engines firing. Are we?
I don't know.
Yes, because our throttle is still at 100. So when we activate stage here, our throttle will still be at 100. Then we're going to wait until our apoapsis gets to 125 kilometers. We'll throttle off, and then we'll coast up into that apo point, or most of the way. So we're waiting until our altitude above ground is close to our apoapsis. Then we're going to begin our orbital insertion burn, lock heading prograde, set throttle to 1, wait until our fuel stage burns out, then we'll drop our second stage, give it 2 seconds to get away from us. This 2 second was important in one of Musk's, like his third launch or his second launch. They didn't have this timing right, and then one stage smacked into the other stage and jacked it up. So, very important. One little line of code can be, yes?
Oh my god, one little whoa.
So then, once that floats away a little bit, fire the third stage and wait until our periapsis is 100 kilometers, at which point we will be in orbit, and we will kill the throttle. All the way automatically to orbit, yes? Sound good?
Yes.
Let us give it a shot. Save to craft. Save the craft. Save the craft, overwrite the craft. Alright. Just a little bit of paranoia there. We are off to launch. And it will just automatically start as soon as we get back into the window. We'll have 3 seconds. I'll adjust it so we can see our...
I'm gonna start sneezing, unfortunately.
Oh no. Throttle up. Nav. Launch. All that various data. We're going to start our pitch over at 1,000 meters. Oh, and noticed it at 1,400. That's how far off it was. Is it burning the center core? Please, God, no. No, good. Okay, good. Because I've done this before, but not with the center core burning. Okay, they're 5,000 meter. More pitch.
That's a lot of pitch.
Yeah. Especially compared to what we did with Kerbal, right? Now we're hitting for 1,500 or 15,000 is our next point. Coming up on that pretty quick. 13, 14. Let's see, it wasn't nearly as far off at 15,000.
Woo!
Get more pitch and full throttle. Drop the boosters. Fire this main core.
Wow.
Now we're going to burn until our apoapsis is 125 kilometers.
Push for Apo.
Yep. So we'll do a quick view in the... So you'll see we're doing a way shallower climb to orbit than we did with Kerbin. Which we probably should do with Kerbin, but we weren't as talented.
So you know your big thing is still there, right?
My big thing is still there?
Yeah. Your,
Oh, my text over?
yeah.
I really need to set up hotkeys for these things.
Hotkeys.
There we go.
Yeah, there it goes.
There we go. So we're waiting on our Apo here to get to 125. I love the way this auto pauses too and everything. And mutes itself. So I can just sit here, doodly-doody, waiting for the program to run. It does also have some debug log that we could be watching and have a whole bunch of extra information in, but there's our 125. We killed our engine, and we managed to get to an Apo of 128 before we killed it. So now it's going to take a while. We got 2.7 minutes. A little time in warp speed, yes?
Alright.
We'll take it down to about the last... Oh, there's our begin our orbital insertion burn. So there's still some danger in warping randomly.
Yeah.
In this. And here we go, we're coming up on fuel. Drop the second stage, fire the third stage. Our apoapsis is 150. Still waiting on our periapsis. Now here we are waiting for periapsis to well, come alive first off, but we're also waiting for the periapsis to reach 100 kilometers, at which point we'll be in orbit and our whole little trip will be done.
Oh.
And we can deorbit and such too. But
It's alright. It'll be, it's 119 right now, so that'll be good. 130. Another 11 minutes, it should be.
So our periapsis has come alive, 35, 36, 38, 39, 40. Right? Who needs map mode, right?
I don't know, do you?
Always being in map mode. Let's take some dramatical views as it gets into its orbit insertion burn.
Oh, that was pretty.
I don't much care for that one.
I like that one, at least. There wasn't a dot.
Whee!
Are you gonna be in the water or land?
We're heading for orbit.
No, just orbit.
It's 68. Well, we did one re-entry as it was, so I was just going to repetitively do that view. Okay. Uh-oh. We have failed.
How? Everything is not available.
Yeah, that's because we lost all our fuel. I screwed it up in warp.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. I screwed it up in warp speed.
Why did you do that? Why would you do that?
Accidentally.
Accidents always kill
See,
people.
there we go. We done shot ourselves into deep space because we overshot the cutoff, or something else went wrong. Well, there we go. We almost got to orbit.
Well, we got.
But we got pretty close there. We may have to debug why that was, but we might do that next time. Why didn't we catch orbit? And because we had plenty of fuel to do other maneuvers. Of course, we done wasted it all. Let's see. I've got a little bit of. Let's see. Well, I guess we could try detonating this stage. Let's put out some solar panels at least. I'm stuck going off into deep space now with no communications equipment at all. I'm not even a useful ComSat. I'm just a worthless piece of space trash. Let's see. Let's get ourselves locked retrograde. I will give it one thing. Some of the details about Kerbin in the sense of the gyro wheels. Gyro wheels. I already forget the names of stuff. The reaction wheels. And you had to pick a small or a big reaction wheel. And some of those things that the retro rocket, some of that's already built into this. Is some of these sort of presumed things that already exist. So let's see. About the only maneuver I have where the capsule might have a slight possible chance of getting enough pushback, retrograde pushback, because I don't have any fuel. But I can explode the thing for some reason. I don't know why they like it, just for giggles, I guess. I don't know that it'll provide enough pushback so that my capsule will come back into orbit, or...
It's not going to.
No, probably not, but let's see. We could stage it and then immediately destroy it. Let's see. That didn't do anything. Nope, we're stuck going off into oblivion. Whee! We're gonna be up in orbit about Drew.
Well, at least
Yet
you
more
had
space
fun.
trash. Well, we came this close. But this is why you need the manual override to be paying attention to cut your fuel when the program goes awry. Oh well. Better luck next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
If you like this one, we'll try another one, but we may be getting back to Kerbin next time. Bye. Take it.